Well, hey guys, and welcome to Inspirations for Your Life. It's great to have you here. It is a Saturday. This is May 2nd, Saturday. Great to have you. If this is your very first time with me, I want to take the opportunity to say welcome and I want to say thank you. If you've been here at least once or many times before, I want to say welcome and I want to say thank you. But of course, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here, choosing to watch or listen to my content. We start our master topic off on a Saturday, which is today, and we roll through the week, 7 days, and we finish up on a Friday. If you guys are thirsty or hungry or what have you, feel free to go. Whoops, spilled some water there. Feel free to go get yourself something. I have my RO water with fresh lemon, and it is absolutely delicious. All right, guys. Great to have you here with me. And so get that. Come on back. Let's just kick off this show because this is another amazing show that I think you guys are going to really enjoy. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you miss any of this, you can always go back to believemeachieve.com. And you can get insights right there. You can get the audible version only, which is the audio version only, or you can get the basically the full cast, which is the video and the audio. So again, welcome to Inspirations for Your Life. This is series 5, which means we're in our 5th year. We concluded over 4 years, and it'll be January, February, March, April. Yeah, 4 years and 4 months. Pretty cool, right? Series 5, Show 19, Episode 1, How People Rebuild Direction When Everything Gets Disrupted. This episode of Inspirations for Your Life with myself, John C. Morley. I'm a serial entrepreneur, engineer, marketing specialist, video producer, podcast host, coach, keynote speaker, graduate student, passionate lifelong learner, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, a published author now that I'm very grateful for. And what I'm going to do here, guys, is I'm actually going to explore with you what happens when life forces a full reset and people must rebuild direction from instability. I mean, I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people. So this week is about one core reality. When systems break, routines, well, they kind of collapse, and stability, it just becomes non-existent or disappears. People are not just dealing with disruption. They are dealing with identity pressure. And I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people to understand that because people want to be right all the time. I get it, but they may not always be right. And I think that's a problem for again a lot of people. They think one way, but then they wonder why something else is that. And I will tell you guys, it's very important to understand this. All right. So they're dealing with an identity pressure. The pressure could be coming from outside, it could be coming from themselves, but ultimately they're enforcing the pressure from their head. Because, ladies and gentlemen, when structure disappears, identity is, well, exposed. And when your identity is exposed, direction must be rebuilt from the ground up. There is no set of shortcuts here. If you try to do shortcuts, well, you're going to be very unhappy because you're going to have to keep doing things over and over and over again. I'm sure you've had that thing, right? Where you learn something and you're like, well, you know what? I don't know if I know that, so I'm going to come back, right? But you waste more time doing that, don't you? Right? So most people, ladies and gentlemen, think breakdowns are failures. You know what, guys? It's just data. And that data helps us become a better version of ourselves. So the breakdowns are actually visibility events. They show us what no longer works. Again, it's data. A lot of times people have, a whole catastrophe of, this, but really it's data that we can use to reshape our life over. I think that's a very important thing for a lot of people to understand that, that data is something that we can learn from every single day. But again, it's not the easiest thing to learn from, right? Because, it kind of takes us down a few pegs and that can be a real problem for some people. So I want to say that to you guys. It can be a problem and you definitely can make changes, but again, it's not going to be comfortable. That's the thing I want to tell you. It's uncomfortable. So we have to practice getting comfortable being uncomfortable. So they show you what no longer works or what you need to cut back or change or pivot away from. And they reveal what was unstable, right? If you're doing something and it's not stable, you want to stop it so you can be stable again. A perfect example I can give you is I had a chair a while back that I actually had the chair for a while, but the chair kept falling apart. And literally about a week or two ago, I was almost on the floor. I grabbed onto the desk and I kept trying to fix the legs for a long time. Had a few rare repair people take a look at it, and they kept trying and trying, and it kept falling apart like 3 to 6 months later. Now they make the chairs terrible, even though it was a very nice, fancy chair, which I'm sitting on now. I'm very grateful that the repair people were able to fix it, and they actually had to make the holes. Basically, they had to make the hole bigger, and then they put this kind of a device in there so that it could bite down better. But my point is that when something's unstable, you don't sit on it, you don't use it, right? I mean, that was obvious. I used another chair. And they force an awareness where comfort used to exist. So, yeah, the comfort of being able to sit on the chair, like, I'm not taking this for granted, ladies and gentlemen, but I don't want to be on the floor, right? I don't want to be on the floor. So I think that's an important thing. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the real transformation begins. It's not in stability, okay? It's not in that fix. It's in the awareness. I was aware that the chair was basically falling apart. And my awareness said, "Hey, John, don't sit on that chair anymore. You're going to be on the floor." I mean, I'm sitting on my chair now, and I could tell you the legs do not feel weak. I don't wobble back and forth, but literally, I was sitting on the chair, and like, the chair was like trying to hold me up, and I could feel what was going on. I could actually feel, and I think that's an important thing. But I was aware of what was going on, and I responded to it. It took me a while to find somebody that could fix the chair, but we had a disruption. And so when systems stop responding, the first reaction is, oh my gosh, confusion. What do I do? What am I supposed to do? Right. And I think that becomes a big problem. So people try to repeat old methods, expecting old results. We said this before with Mr. Einstein, right? He said doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is what, ladies and gentlemen, I've said this many times before. It is insanity. Yes, it's insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results without changing any of the variables or any of this, the ways you do it. But the environment has already changed. So again, sitting on the chair again, I would have had a problem. So why did I keep getting on the chair? Well, I kept trying to fix it, but then when it got to the point where it was like of no return, and basically the leg fell off the chair, I said, "Okay, that's it. We're done. I'm not trying to fix this anymore. We're definitely getting somebody else, and we're going to keep calling until we get someone." I guess there wasn't enough discomfort that I needed to do that because the chair was still working. Now it became, well, non-working. So that was a real problem. So, and what used to work no longer produces outcomes anymore. So I was tightening the screw on the bolt, it was like a hex, and I kept tightening it. But then after a few months, it got loose. And literally, I'm telling you, I'm sitting on the chair. I mean, so I'll know within a few weeks or a few months, the chair was getting loose. I mean, I'm not trying to wiggle on the chair, but I was literally sitting on the chair and I could feel the chair changing how it was holding me up. And it was a scary feeling. And then to be on the floor, like I said, I was holding the desk, but I kind of went down slowly to the floor. And I was like, okay. And I kind of like felt that I knew it. And I was like, okay, enough's enough. We have to fix this. So that is the first signal of transition, right? Routine collapses, like my chair collapsed, literally. And predictability disappears. There's no way to predict other than the fact that I'm going to definitely be on the floor, right? Yeah. So that's important to understand. And so control feels reduced. Our focus breaks because of the disruption that happened. The chair broke. I was literally getting ready to go on the air, and I said, "Okay, get rid of that chair, clean it up. Let me pull another chair in from the dining room, and let me sit on that chair and move on." So energy scatters and decisions slow down. And at this stage, most people will feel, you got it, ladies and gentlemen, they'll feel stuck. But the truth of the matter is, they are not stuck, right? When I broke my tib and fib, was I stuck? Well, in my head, I was stuck because I didn't know how to piece this all together. I didn't know how long it was going to take. I didn't know what the steps were to basically go back and be able to walk again. Now, I had broken my legs before when I was a lot younger, and the process of learning to walk was harder back then. This was a little different because it was only the one leg, but there was still atrophy in the leg. Not to bore you on that, but that whole feeling of just, I can't use that foot for a while. And then not being able to put on clothes the regular way. I had things like breakaway pants like you use on a basketball court. And these are unstructured, right? An unstructured system always feels like failure because we get stuck in our own mind before it feels like an opportunity. We don't think we're going the right direction. I mean, that's basically the truth. We don't feel we're going the right way. We feel we're going the wrong pathway and that we're not making any changes. And I think a lot of people out there are going to say, hey, John, I've been through this. I tried to get around it, but for whatever reason, I didn't get around it. And it's not, ladies and gentlemen, that you can't get around it. It's the fact that you are basically going into panic mode. That's probably the best thing to tell you. You're going into panic mode. And when you go into panic mode, it's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like, save me, right? Like, like you're drowning if you know how to swim. And so I think these are important things for a lot of people, to understand, but they're important. Okay. They are definitely, definitely important for us to become aware of. So because our identity is built from repetition, that should be no surprise to all of you. Okay. When repetition no longer works, identity no longer feels stable. Thus, we have an identity crisis. And that in itself creates an internal friction like, well, who am I? What do I do? Where do I belong? What's going on? Right? That creates an internal friction. And with that friction, pressure starts to increase. And the awareness starts to, let's say, populate. Confusion forces an observation. Like, hey, what the heck is going on to me? Like, what are we doing? An observation creates the first moment of clarity. Like, something's not right. Like, we're not in Kansas anymore. You remember the movie, right? Of The Wizard of Oz. Hey, Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. Or with the Goldilocks and Three Bears. I just broke the chair. Oh my goodness, right? So these are all very different things. Now, not full clarity happens at that split moment, guys. Not full clarity. Just enough to peak in awareness to begin. And so people all begin at different levels, right? But it's that awareness that helps us compound, that builds through our sleep, through our other tasks that we do. My awareness of breaking my leg and how to basically heal. Because you see, you don't just sit in bed, right? You have to get around yourself to live. So the awareness was, how do I live with a broken leg? I can't rely on everybody for everything, right? So I was determined to learn, how can I live with a broken leg until my leg gets healed? I knew my leg would heal, but it was just a very funny feeling, you know? And then, like I have told you guys before, couldn't take a shower because you couldn't get the cast wet. So we were taking sponge baths. But when I got up in the morning, it was very challenging because, it wasn't the quick take a shower and get going. It was, well, let me go have breakfast and then let me figure out how I'm going to, do a sponge bath and get ready. And it was a project because I still had full clothes, right? And the problem with this was that, how do you maneuver, I should say, with the leg and stuff? And so I used breakaway pants, and that was a big godsend. And ladies and gentlemen, this adaptability, this is where it starts. It's not through big moves. It's from that awareness, but through the small corrections and shifts or pivots that we make in our life every single day. And so when something happens, it's not the norm. We have to say, okay, this isn't working right. What should I do? What could I do? What abilities do I have right now? That was what's going through my head. So I can get up. I can still use the other foot. I can hop, right? What do I do? So tiny adjustments in thinking. Another big project was, when I got up, if I wanted to go outside, I went into the wheelchair. So it was a process of me kind of, and I didn't use crutches, even though I had them. I didn't use crutches. I kind of hopped over to the wheelchair, got in the wheelchair, got all comfortable, got all set up, rolled out of my door, rolled outside, and lived life. It was not easy, you know, the tiny adjustments in the thinking, tiny adjustments in my behavior, my beliefs. But each day, it got a little easier, right? Being able to get a sponge bath and do all this myself and be able to get breakfast and do things, that was such a feeling of accomplishment for me. You might say, gee, why? Well, if you lost that ability, just pretend for, I don't know, let's say for a month you couldn't walk. How would that affect your life? You probably wouldn't be able to drive. You probably wouldn't be able to use stairs. You'd have difficulty getting around, right? And maybe you didn't break your leg. Maybe you just had some type of issue that caused your leg to not allow you to walk, some other condition, a worse condition. And although you were able to change clothes and stuff like that, things were still hard because the leg maybe didn't have feeling in it, right? So survival thinking activates first. That's how we're designed. Survival first. But survival thinking is not the destination. A lot of people use survival thinking, but survival thinking is meant to keep us safe. It's not meant to make us successful. It is only the entry point. Because, ladies and gentlemen, survival creates attention. It creates a very centered phase of awareness to what's going on. And the attention creates a moment for us to not only be aware, but to digest and to process, like, what the heck is going on, right? And awareness creates a direction. Awareness creates a direction, and that noise reduces internally. So patterns begin to reappear, and suddenly it's like, okay, now what do I do? Right? And I'll be honest, the very first day, I was like, how am I ever going to do anything? And then I said, okay, I've got to be positive about this. Because this entire time, I was lucky to have my cleaning lady come every single day to keep checking on me. But I basically got out of bed, got dressed the best I could. I had breakfast, had a sponge bath, got dressed, did work remotely with my clients through my laptop, and even went outside and even went to a what they call a certain kind of meeting for basically people in our association, whereby they might have had an infraction. So we call it like a violation. And so there was a board that I served on as vice president, and I still did this while I was, let's say, incapacitated. So and then going to the doctors, that was another challenge, another godsend. Luckily, I had this ride service that was able to pick me up, but still, you had to schedule the ride. You had to go outside. You had to wait for the ride. They had to bring you up. They had to strap you in with the chair. And it was just everything took longer. So you start seeing what failed. That's the first part. You start noticing what broke, right? In my case, it was my leg. And you start understanding why. Well, I knew the why. And this is where people either rebuild consciously or they repeat an unconsciously good or bad pattern. If they repeat a good pattern, well, they're on their way to recovery. And remember, it's not just recovery of your leg. It's recovery of your mind, body, and spirit, because your spirit is just as important as your body recovering. Repetition of old systems lead to continued failure. So a repetition of the old systems, and I'm talking about systems meaning things you do, algorithms you do, right? If you do those same thing over and over again and you break down, well, you're going to lose your will. You're going to get very fed up with yourself. So it's important that you keep your mind in alignment. You keep your mind in a place where you can do things. But awareness of failure leads to either resignation or a redesign. And so when you discover you can't do something, like I remember getting to the kitchen and I could not get to the cabinets to get things on the top shelf. So I got a little device. It was like a pole, had a hand on. It was like a gripper. And so that little, I don't know, $20, $30 device made me, let's say, independent. Because the big thing was I didn't want to be a hassle to anybody. There were sometimes I had neighbors that would cook me breakfast or things like that, but I was okay. I could still cook. I could still do things. I mean, I could be on the one leg for a while. So even if I had to stand and cook scrambled eggs or something, I could do that. I could lean on the cabinets or something. I could even we had like a stool. I could even sit on the stool. So I had options. And at this stage, ladies and gentlemen, clarity does not come all at once. It comes in, well, trickled layers. Small insights first, then a structure slowly returns. But again, the structure doesn't happen overnight. And people get disappointed because they don't get the answers they want now. That's probably the problem for a lot of people. And then, ladies and gentlemen, you know what happens? The decisions become easier. When I learned that, I wasn't going to be able to put on pants every day, that was going to be hard for me. And I learned what breakout pants were. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I could do the same thing like the basketball players do and put on breakout pants. And then they have basic snaps. You could just snap off the whole thing or just snap off. In my case, all I did was snap off the one leg and just snap it right on. And that worked well. So it was just basically underwear and my breakout pants. And so the decisions became easier for me. And when something happened that was able to propel me forward, I got a really good feeling that I'm doing this myself. Yes, my leg is broken. Yes, I can't walk. Yes, things are going to take me longer, but I had a solution and I could still be independent. And so the focus sharpens. The direction starts to stabilize again. You're like, okay, I get some hope. What most people miss is this. Are you ready, guys? You sure you're ready? Okay. Breakdown. You with me? Breakdown is not the end of structure. No. Let me say it again. Breakdown is not the end of structure. Breakdown is not the end of structure. It is the beginning of a better structure, but only if you choose to respond correctly. Because a lot of people will have this ego, but I just did a couple things. One, I prayed to God and the Lord, please give me the strength, Lord, to get through this day and to be able to live my life and, not be a burden to anybody and to be safe and to be able to do the things I need to do and to allow people to just give me slack. I wasn't looking for sympathy. I was just praying that people would give me slack because I need it. And ladies and gentlemen, if you resist, you just extend and complicate confusion. There's some people on the earth that just want to resist everything. Why? It's in their nature. They're like thick-skulled. And so there were people that were nice to me, a lot of people. And there were some people, I had a neighbor of mine who wasn't the nicest. And he was not the nicest, but other people were nice to me. I had another neighbor of mine that was nice, but they were only being nice to me for, well, kind of a reason that what could I do for them? Which is sad because usually you don't do things for the reason that you're going to get something back. Otherwise, don't give, don't donate your time, don't give anything. If you observe, you shorten things. You make them easier because now you become awareness of the beginning and the end, and now you know where you went off track. If you adapt, you exit that mode, you exit that struggle, right? We could talk about this in the army or the military, right? They're taught to be soldiers and fighters, but they're told and taught to be very strong, and they are conditioned to be resilient, almost without them thinking about it. So the reason they do this is if a soldier becomes emotional, that training has to kick in immediately, whether they're emotional or not. It has to kick in like second nature. Momentum does not return instantly. If you think it does, well, guys, you're mistaken. It returns through an alignment. Alignment comes between awareness, behavior, and an action that you take. Now, here's the kicker. Once those three begin to match again, progress restarts. Okay? It's like an engine starting up. It doesn't start at once, right? Slow at first, and then it hums and it's consistent. And then it compounds. The example I want to give you, maybe a lot of you remember the mercury vapor lights that were in a lot of gymnasiums. If you had any kind of gym many years ago, they had these lights. And so when you would go in the first time and they would turn the lights on, they would take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to come on. Now, if you turn them off, okay, and they're off for let's say they were off more than maybe 10 seconds, and you turn it back on, they had to go through this whole cold boot up process again. If you just turn it off and you turn it back on, that was fine. But it was off for more than, I think it was 10 or 15 seconds. It would have to go through the whole cold boot up again. And then, so now we're talking about the compounding, right? So discipline, guys, becomes the rebuilding tool, not motivation, not emotion. Discipline, because discipline is what allows structure to form when emotion becomes unstable. Because, ladies and gentlemen, your emotions are going to become unstable in your life. I've got to let you be aware of that. And structure is what stabilizes direction when everything else is uncertain or it becomes unreliable. Focus becomes more important than the speed, because speed without structure recreates chaos, but focus within structure creates progress. Focus within a structure creates a progress. Like if you're taking a subject at school, focus within a curriculum creates progress, creates a path for knowledge, for learning. So attentive people and attention becomes selective. Energy becomes intentional, and decisions become simplified. As clarity returns, identity begins to rebuild. Not the old identity that you had, but a revised version shaped by experience. Stronger patterns, stronger awareness, stronger decision making, and less reaction, more intention. Eventually, something important happens, and you stop trying to restore what was and start building what works. That shift is the real turning point. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. Be sure to check out BelieveMeAchieve.com for more of my amazing, inspiring creations. Have a great one, everyone, and be well.